How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. In this video, I'll be taking you through the ultimate guide to the upcoming Game Week 13. So over the past few days, including today, some injury news has cropped up. Matoma, Bowen look like they'll be missing, and I'll be going over some potential replacements if you guys want to go there. Otherwise, the usual talking points covered in the ultimate guide, the stats review, and the Campsy debate this week proved to be quite interesting, so make sure that you guys stick around for that. But let's get into this ultimate guide, so sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So the first talking point we're going to be going over as usual in these ultimate guides is going to be the stats review, and I'll be going over the best defensive numbers as well as the best attacking ones. And I'll be highlighting the top 6 and the bottom 6 sides in both these categories, as you guys should target either of them for different reasons. For example, let's go over the first team, and it's going to be the attacking stats. So the top 6 sides in terms of XG non-penalty are going to be Liverpool, Man City, Aston Villa, Chelsea, Newcastle, and finally Spurs. Now I just want to shout out Brentford here because they actually are tied with Spurs at 1.73 XG, and this is going to be per 90 minutes. So these 6 teams are going to be sides to target from an attacking point of view, very strong attacking numbers throughout the season, especially Liverpool at 2.07. So if you guys know what the first game of Game Week 13 is, it's Liverpool versus Man City, the top 2 XG non-penalty teams in the Prem at the moment. So this should be an absolute goal fest, but you know what that means? It's probably going to be a 0-0. But both these sides, very strong attacking numbers, so you can understand if you guys want to go for a Salah or a Haaland captain, as the teams are definitely putting up the numbers. We then have Aston Villa, Chelsea, Newcastle, and then finally Spurs, all relatively respectable stats. The big one for me is actually Chelsea. Now remember, this is without the penalties, so they're still putting up good numbers, even though they're getting so many penalties at the moment. Happy to see Aston Villa are going to be there as an Ollie Watkins owner, and just hoping maybe even Matty Cash can jump on some of that XG. Finally, Spurs, a popular captain this week is going to be Heung-min Son, still putting up some pretty respectable numbers, but how will the injuries affect these? As I do believe Maddison's a massive miss. But you guys know the kind of left-hand side teams, the best teams, had really strong starts of the season, but now let's go over the bottom teams. So Sheffield United, Burnley, Luton, Nottingham Forest, Fulham, and finally Crystal Palace are going to be the top 6 sides in terms of the lowest XG non-penalty. I'm actually looking to bring in an Eze this week, so Crystal Palace being featured isn't what I would like to see, but I guess with him and Elise potentially back, they could actually improve those stats. Otherwise, pretty kind of understandable. Sheffield United, Burnley, Luton, Forest, and Fulham all kind of low in the table. And what you guys should do is target the defenders facing these teams, because the chance of a clean sheet should be quite high. So for example, Crystal Palace are facing Luton, that could be a clean sheet on the cards, so I've got my fingers crossed. So once again, left-hand side, target these sides for their attackers. On the right-hand side, target the defenders facing these sides, because unfortunately, their attacks aren't too great. Now let's switch things up and go over the defensive numbers. So the top 6 defenses rated by expected clean sheets are going to be Arsenal, Man City, Newcastle, Aston Villa, Liverpool, and finally Chelsea. So the one team that was a little bit surprised here is actually going to be Aston Villa. I haven't really got many clean sheets from Matty Cash at the moment, but I guess the defensive numbers are still going to be there. Now this did raise a little bit of a red flag, as I was looking to captain Heung-min Son potentially this game week, and they are facing Aston Villa, so could this be a fixture to actually avoid? Now this might be kind of a game style thing. Aston Villa love to have that high line, Spurs might counter attack, and therefore this could play into Heung-min Son's hands. But it's something to pay attention to because the defensive numbers haven't been that bad from Aston Villa, and I think that Heung-min Son might be the most popular captain. Otherwise, Arsenal, very understandable. A lot of us are looking to even double up with a Saliba and a Gabriel. It's a very wise decision based on the stats. Then in terms of Newcastle, hoping these defensive injuries don't affect them too much, as I do own Lascelles in my defensive department. Nice to see Liverpool and Chelsea here. Maybe a return of the attacking fullback could be on the cards, as Trent and Reece-James are on the watch list. So the left-hand side, you guys can target these defenses. I know the defensive points haven't really been there over the past couple game weeks, so let's see if that improves over the upcoming game weeks. Now on the right-hand side is probably the teams that I think are the most important to target, and these are going to be the worst defenses in terms of XG conceded. I've changed up the metric. I'm not going to go over expected clean sheets, as we want to target the sides that are conceding the most goals per game. So that's going to be Luton, expected to concede 2.4 XG per game, and that's why I'm looking to actually bring in a Crystal Palace attacker like an Eze this week. Otherwise, Sheffield United, Bournemouth, West Ham, Burnley, and then finally going to be Fulham. So yes, I do own the goalkeeper of one of the worst defenses in the Prem. So let's see if West Ham do improve, or at least Areola gets us a clean sheet, as they are facing one of the worst attacks in the Prem, and that's going to be Burnley. So if you target these sides in terms of the fixtures for your attackers, and that's why I'm actually looking at Eze because he faces 3 of these in the next 3 fixtures. Now, unfortunately this week, we're not really looking at too many differential captains, but if I was to look at potentially one, it could have been a Jared Bowen. Unfortunately, as you guys know, he might be missing Game Week 13. But if you guys do want to go over any more stats, go over to Fantasy Football Fix, go over to their Opta Stats sandbox. They've got all the stats that your heart could desire. Now, the next talking point, I just want to give you guys a reminder that please don't really act on any transfer news at the current moment. I would wait for the press conferences coming up on Thursday and Friday for the latest news, as after an international break, these are really integral. For example, we got news about Jared Bowen potentially missing Game Week 13. He obviously left the England camp with the knee injury. We have had some initial news about his initial scans, but I'm pretty sure David Moyes will give more context on Friday in the press conference. So the last thing that you guys want to do is kind of sell Jared Bowen. Then on Friday, maybe David Moyes comes and says that he's going to start against Burnley on the weekend. And that could have been avoidable if you guys waited for more news. So we have to have a lot of news on players, Matoma, for example, Jared Bowen, and maybe there's some more injuries that we haven't even looked at. So I just want to give you guys a reminder that the press conferences will be coming up on Thursday and Friday. It has been an international break. I know we want to make those transfers, but waiting for more news might be quite valuable. Now, the next talking point I want to go over, I just kind of mentioned the fact that Matoma and Jared Bowen might be missing for the upcoming game week, and therefore I'm looking at some replacements, especially for Bowen. So the following talking point will be covering the midfielders at the price brackets of Matoma and also Jared Bowen. So if you guys are looking for some replacements, this is where I would be looking. So the 4 players I want to talk about are going to be Cole Palmer, Mbeumo, Brennan Johnson, and also Eze. And these 4 at the current moment are my favorites. Now, yes, you guys could go for a Doku from Man City, even a Phil Foden if you guys can afford him. But I think the following 4 players are reliable for starts and also looking like decent options. So let's go over how we usually compare these players. Let's go over the fixture review to start off with. You guys can see that Cole Palmer, the next 3 fixtures aren't that great. But Newcastle, with those defensive injuries, might be there for the taking. After that, he's got Brighton and then United. And as you guys know, those aren't very tough fixtures. And then that lovely sea of green starts with Everton away. So at the current moment, I'm looking at potentially bringing in Cole Palmer around Game Week 16. That gives me enough kind of insight. If we see some Chelsea options coming back like an Nkunku, how that lineup's going to be. But I'm pretty sure that Cole Palmer is a decent option at his price point. So if you guys maybe want to go super cheap, upgrade another department, upgrade one of your forwards, your defenders, or another midfielder, Cole Palmer is definitely there as a budget option. Now the next option, probably the most important one or the most kind of expected replacement, it's going to be Mbeumo from Brentford. And the only tough part is that he has Arsenal in Game Week 13. Now, I'm not saying that he won't score in Game Week 13, but I guess it is a tougher game. But if you're on Game Week 14 onwards, the fixtures really turn. Now, the big thing to note, and this is kind of a nice segue into a reminder about blank Game Week 18, please remember that Man City are in the Club World Cup, and therefore their fixture against Brentford has been postponed. So I'll probably be bringing in Mbeumo for the next 4 game weeks after the Arsenal game, and then look to either bench him or replace him because they might get a double in Game Week 20. But if you're kind of Game Week 14 and Game Week 16 are where you guys are going to be looking, Luton, Sheffield United, you would have seen in the defensive numbers, they're not looking too good, and Brentford's attack is always pretty decent. And the next option is an outside punt with the injury to Richarlison. Johnson does look like he might be nailed for the upcoming game weeks, and the Spurs fixtures really do turn in the next 2 games. So Aston Villa, Man City, you guys can avoid them and then look at a Brennan Johnson from Game Week 15 onwards. But what you guys can do if you want to bring him in now, that's a fine replacement. As mentioned, with that high line that Aston Villa do play, Spurs will look to counter-attack, and therefore this could be quite a high-scoring affair. So I will include him as an outside punt if you guys want to double up with a Heung-min Son and a Johnson. Maybe if you don't even own a Son, you could get some coverage of that Spurs attack. And the final selection I want to talk about is going to be Eze from Crystal Palace, an absolute baller in my eyes, and that's I'm targeting him for the next 3 games. So Luton, West Ham and Bournemouth, as mentioned, Crystal Palace have 3 of the worst defenses in the Prem at the moment. And what my current strategy might be is bring him in and then take him to Cole Palmer from Game Week 16 onwards. That way you're getting those lovely 3 fixtures, Luton, West Ham and then Bournemouth, then you're getting Everton, Sheffield United and Wolves and the continued run that Chelsea have when the fixtures do turn in Game Week 16 for Crystal Palace. So yes, this might be kind of overplaying it and might be banking in a transfer for the future, but I really like the look of the next 3 for Crystal Palace. So in terms of the fixtures, I would probably say that Mbeumo edges it. I would say that Brennan Johnson without the blank also has some good fixtures. And then with Eze and Cole Palmer, it's the opposite. One starts off strong and one finishes strong. Let's see if the stats do clarify any of these comparisons. I'll be going over all 4 options, their minutes, XG, XA, points, and finally expected FPL points. And those are going to be per 90 minutes. So as you guys can see in terms of minutes, Mbeumo definitely the most nailed option. If you guys have seen over on Twitter, he's one of 2 options that have actually started every game and haven't been subbed off. So the maximum 1,080 minutes have been played by Mbeumo this Premier League season. So if you guys want to go for a nailed option, it doesn't get much better than him. Other than that though, you guys can see some of these options have had some injuries. Brennan Johnson wasn't really starting at the beginning of the season, and the same can be said about Cole Palmer. When Eze is fit though, he does definitely start, and that's why I'm really confident. After coming back, was subbed for the first game and played a full 90 minutes last game week, I'm fairly confident he should be fine for the upcoming game week. Now when we do look at XG, this is going to be the non-penalty variant, and you guys can see that Mbeumo is the current leader. If we did include penalties, you'll know that Cole Palmer would be up the top, because he's had 4 penalties in the last 5 games. So besides Mbeumo, the rest are fairly kind of consistent, around 2.5 XG per game, and that's not that bad at their price points. Moving to XA, you guys can see that Cole Palmer is more of an assister than a scorer, and he's got the highest XA out of these 4. Mbeumo's assisting threat has gone down since he's playing more of a focal point, and Eze's XA isn't too bad. But now as we guys see those penalties and that penalty threat from Cole Palmer, in terms of points scored over the 90 minutes, we've got Cole Palmer at 6.99, and that's followed up by Mbeumo at 6.17. Now the next two haven't been that great in terms of the kind of per 90 minutes, but at least they're underperforming considering the expected stats. So Cole Palmer just gets better and better in terms of the expected numbers. It's now risen to 7.58, whereas Mbeumo's at 6.36. But please just remember, this is because of the penalties. I'm not saying that Cole Palmer won't get a penalty in the future game weeks, but 4 penalties in the last 5 game weeks is absolutely insane. Then between Eze and Johnson, it seems quite close between them, and that's on terms of the Crystal Palace midfielder, it's purely kind of a fixture play. But as you guys can see in terms of the stats, Cole Palmer definitely the option at the budget price point. I would definitely go for Mbeumo though if you guys want to go for a set replacement, but if you are feeling a little bit spicy like myself, maybe Eze for the next 3, but that's only if you get Mbeumo next game week. So what I mean by that is, for example, if you only want to replace one player at the current moment, if it's Jarrod Bowen and Matoma, you're happy with your other 4 midfielders, I'd go for Mbeumo for the medium term. But for my own personal team, I'm looking to take out a Dingra next week, so what I can do is bring in Eze this week, avoid the Mbeumo fixture, then bring him in for the Luton game as an Ndingra replacement. So if you guys can get Mbeumo next week anyways, I'd look at the potential Eze move, and then take him to Cole Palmer come game week 16. But as I said, if you guys don't have some Spurs coverage, Johnson is a fine replacement, but I just prefer the other 3. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Do you think it's overplaying it a bit, going for Eze when I could just go for Mbeumo? The nice thing is though, as much as Cole Palmer price rises, I doubt he gets to the price that Eze is. But let me know who your replacement is for the upcoming game week. If you guys own Matoma and Bowen, who are your 2 replacements? Hopefully you guys just own 1. Now the last talking point I want to go over is all about Cam C. Now this week, as mentioned, it's going to be a tough week. We've got Man City facing Liverpool, a very unpredictable game, and that's why the Cam C this week might be quite spread. Now I do believe that there's going to be a popular option this week, and it's going to be Heung-min Son. He has Aston Villa at home, and he's projected to score 6.2 points according to Fantasy Football Fix. So the highest predicted point scorer this week according to Fix is going to be the South Korean, but as mentioned, Aston Villa haven't been defending that bad this Premier League season. But in terms of how I think the game's going to go, as mentioned, the highline of Aston Villa, the counter-attack of Heung-min Son, that just seems like a recipe for some FPL points. So I do believe the most popular option this week, so if you guys do own him, look to captain him, and I think right now probably the safest option. Another option you guys can look at is going to be Erling Haaland. Now please just ignore the kind of 3.8 because he's currently carrying a yellow flag, so that's going to affect his fixed kind of projected points. So once that yellow flag does get cleared as I expected to, the projected points will obviously increase. Now if you guys had to ask me who would I captain between Haaland and Salah, I probably would say Haaland. I just believe he's more of a talisman for that side. It is a home game for Man City against Liverpool, and I just believe that Haaland's the better FPL asset. Now if you guys are worried about this yellow flag that he's carrying, don't worry, because it's the early kickoff. If we get nothing from Pep as expected in the press conference, we probably will be getting early team sheet news about Erling Haaland. So if you guys are worried about that risk, don't worry, I think that he should be fine, and therefore if you want to captain him, a very secure option. Then the third option is going to be slightly out there. It's going to be Bukayo Saka from Arsenal. Now Arsenal aren't attacking at the current moment, but Odegaard is looking to be back in training, and therefore he should be fine for game week 13. Now I would probably tell you that Brentford side is a little bit tough, but after what Liverpool did against them, I'm expecting Bukayo Saka and Arsenal to do the same. So if you guys want to go for another right-sided player like Mo Salah, so therefore Saka might do the job as well. Now he's predicted to score 4.4 points in game week 13, so not exactly as high as Heung-min Son, but I guess he still has some potential to do well. Now out of these 3 options, I would probably say if you guys do own Heung-min Son, I would probably go for him. I just believe the upside is the highest in terms of him, but I do believe Erling Haaland's in a close second. Now if you guys do want to go out there as a differential punt, I was looking at Jarrod Bowen. If he's fit for the weekend, maybe David Moyes says that he's going to be fine, I'd also consider him as a Camp C option. Otherwise, Solanke for Bournemouth has a great game on the cards, so if you guys want to go super differential, he could be the man to look at. I think generally though, most people will probably go for a Heung-min Son, a Salah or a Haaland. If I had to rank them in order, I would say Son, Haaland and then Salah. But let me know if you guys are going differential this game week. So the comments down below, let me know who your captain is for the upcoming game week. If you guys had to rate Son, Salah and Haaland in an order, what would it be? And who do you think the best captain is this week? You guys don't have to own them. Now this is going to conclude our talking points, but as always, if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments down below and I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. But this is basically going to wrap up the video, guys. Hope you guys did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys for the team selection coming up tomorrow, so make sure those bell notifications are turned on. But for the time being, I'm going to be signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL and I'm out. Cheers, bye.